Hello, I'm Ken Kuhar, and welcome to the International Association of Woodcarvers.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the International Association of Woodcarvers. Today is Saturday, May the 7th, 2022, a little bit after 3 p.m., and I want to welcome you all to our Saturday afternoon meeting. Today with us, we have a special guest. Ken Kuhar is on with us, coming to us from Pennsylvania. He's going to be talking a little bit about his carving journey, and he's also going to be doing a demonstration at the end, so stick around for that. I want to tell you a little bit about what we've got coming up in the coming weeks as far as the International Association goes. Next Saturday, we're going to have Dana Kababik. She's coming to us from a group called the Carving Junkies, and she's going to be on talking to us about advertising wood carvings and her YouTube videos and the things that she does to promote wood carving. And then on May the 21st, Dylan Goodson's going to be coming on. He has a class coming up on relief carving, and he's going to be coming on doing a demonstration on May the 21st. I want to let you all know at that point, we're going to drop back to doing a monthly meeting instead of continuing to do weekly meetings starting in June. In June, we have Chris Wilson from Wilson Wildlife Sculpture that's going to be coming on with us. That's going to be on June the 18th, so put that on your calendar. In July, we're going to have somebody coming in on July the 23rd. At this point, that meeting is open, so we're going to try to find someone to fill that spot. And then on August the 20th, Malcolm Sharp's going to come on, and he's going to be talking about his twisted sticks and probably doing a demonstration on that meeting. So that takes us through the summer, and then in September, we're going to start our weekly meetings back. So watch social media. We'll make sure that we advertise these dates. We'll have some other things going out. We're also going to be continuing to do our newsletter, so watch for that. If you're not signed up for the newsletter yet, Tom just put in the chat the link tree. You can go out and sign up for the newsletter. You can also buy us a coffee so that you can support these meetings. And again, we appreciate all the support you can give. Today in the meeting, we're also going to be doing a knife auction. Rich and Holly Smithson over at Helvie Knives has been generous to donate knives to us to allow us to continue to have these meetings each week. So this week we're going to be auctioning off this knife. We put it in the advertisement that we've been doing all week, but this is a well-tail handle Don Mertz Signature Series 1 knife, and if you can see there the blade shape, that's a Don Mertz Signature Series 1 knife. If you're interested in bidding on this knife, we're going to have the chat open. You can do that throughout the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, we'll close that auction, and the highest bid will win the knife. Again, it's a well-tail handle Don Mertz Signature Series 1 blade, red, white, and blue handle. And if you're interested in that, we'll go ahead and open up the chat. And again, we'll call that at the end of the meeting. Again, we want to thank Rich and Holly Smithson for their support over at Helvie Knives. We always appreciate the fact that they donate to us and they come on and contribute with us. So want to welcome all the people that came in from Dave Stetson's class. I know his class started today on the Uncle Sam. Appreciate you all stepping over from his class into our meeting. Again, he's doing an Uncle Sam class that started today. Janet Cordell has a class that's starting on May the 9th on bighorn sheep. Again, if you're interested in that class, you can reach out to Janet Cordell. And remember the Woodcarving Academy that's available that you can go out and catch some of the past classes. There's other classes out there that you can subscribe to, and you can go out and take those classes. Again, it's Woodcarving Academy, and your Ron there has been generous to donate certificates for us to give away in these meetings, so we want to thank them as well. Having said all that, again, Ken Kuhar is coming to us from Pennsylvania. We're going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Ken. We look forward to hearing what you have to offer, Ken, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Blake. Thanks, everyone, for being on. And I'm just going to share a little bit of my carving journey, how I got into carving, some of the carvings I like to do, and then we'll do a little demo. I like doing a lot of faces on the corner. We'll just do a little demo of that later on. But I started carving in 2006, and wish I'd started earlier, but that's when I got into it. I was actually out of work on disability. I had to have surgery for removing cancer, and I couldn't do a whole lot at home. but I don't like sitting still. So I was looking through some old wood magazines that I had and came across articles that they had on wood carving. I always loved drawing caricatures and cartoons of people and thought putting the two together for carving would be a fun thing. So I went and got a piece of 2x4 and an X-Acto knife, and I carved this first piece, which it's called the little guy, and probably about 2.5 inches tall. Didn't know how to paint back then. And that was the very first carving I did. And I was pleased with the results. I used acrylic paint. Didn't know about thinning it down back then. Managed to complete the piece, and from there I had enough fun that I decided to keep on carving. And I started trying to carve everything. Started going online and learned that the X-Acto knife wasn't the right tool, and that there were actual carving knives and chisels. So I ordered some off the internet, and some of those I'm still using today and have in one of my carving kits. Some have been put aside for better tools. And so I would get different books that I could find and start carving. Here's one of my first wizards. As you can see, it's fairly flat, not a lot of nose there for depth. But that's how we all start, is you have to start somewhere. So that was one of my first pieces in 2006 of doing it off of an apple branch from an apple tree I had in my yard in the house I used to live in. So I continued on with trying to learn about carving, mostly on my own from books. And then I found out about the Lancaster County Woodcarving Club. And I highly recommend it if you're able to join a club. You meet great people and you learn about a lot of resources through a woodcarving club. And joining that club, I learned about the Northeast Woodcarvers Roundup that is every year up in Honesdale, Pennsylvania at Cherry Ridge Campground up there. They host the roundup. The classes are free except for materials, and the instructors all volunteer their time up there, and it's a blast. And you can try all kinds of different carvings. And one thing I've learned in my carving journey is try everything. If you're into caricatures or relief carving, try those other carvings. Try chip carving. I've taken classes in that. You can try wood burning, because that can come in handy in your carvings, whether you want to be just a wood burning pyrography as your art style. But they all help you in building, and also the people you meet, you're able to network with. So all valuable lessons. And I can't overemphasize taking classes. Living where I do in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, having the Lancaster Club. They're pretty well known for their yearly show, and they have a lot of renowned carvers that have come out of Lancaster Club. And also not far from us is the Conewago Carvers in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, East Berlin. And they have a very good club, and they have one of the best selections of classes that you can find in our area for both local and instructors that travel in. And I've been thankful for the opportunity to take a lot of classes there. Pete LeClaire's taught there, and Floyd Radigan. Taking classes there from Jim Heiser, who's a member of that club, and Bob Hershey has taught there. So definitely recommend taking classes and as a way of learning carving, and also to getting to know other carvers and tips and tricks as a lot of people have learned along the line. So as I progressed, I've gotten into a lot of different carvings, but as I said, a lot of my carving I like to do is faces on the corner. During the COVID pandemic in 2020, I started working my way through all the presidents. So I would come down and carve each president as I would have time, carve one or two a day in a way of practicing faces. And as I've heard many times, the more you practice, the better you're going to get through both muscle memory and the act of carving. So these are just a few of the ones that I've carved, but I have the whole collection and I've had a lot of fun with that. Some I might consider going back and trying to do again or some more of, but it's a great way to practice. Just a small piece of wood. They were all about 3 or 4 inch tall pieces that then I cut down on the corner and then began carving. And one resource I like using is caricature artists. And one fella named Tom Richmond, who has a book, Mad Art of Caricature. It's a great resource book. I highly recommend it. He does great drawings of famous people, but he also gives very good explanations, similar to what you'll hear in wood carving classes. You can see that, like facial dimensions, how many eyes across the head can be, shapes of noses. And even though he's explaining it from the artist perspective of pen and ink or pencil on paper, for a caricaturist or a carver doing faces, I find it to be very helpful in how he even talks about some of the musculature and some of the body part names that can definitely help you understand better your subject matter that you're trying to carve, as in my favorite of being carving faces and seeing if I can get a resemblance. Another resource, and there's a lot of books out there, but another good resource I like is Marv Kaiserot's caricature heads in wood and on paper. And Marv does an excellent job of explaining the carving process of starting with the block of wood and shaping the head. And this is also a very valuable resource that I would highly recommend in caricature carving. I'll share with you a few of the other carvings I've done. I like carving, and one is you can always have fun with scrap wood, doing small pumpkins with, basically it's the same idea of a face on the corner, but it lets you practice and have a lot of fun with expressions. You can work on the cheeks, you can work on the size of the nose, you can do different types of eyes, practice your teeth so that they look like teeth and not just straight little rows. As a comparison, like when I showed you this one, here's a wizard I did, old man, in 2020, trying to leave a nice big nose. The eyes are a little more inset. Definitely have a lot more flow to the hair, and painting the eyes and just staining the rest of the wood to kind of bring out that figure. Another piece I had fun doing, a friend of mine who's a locksmith asked me to do a carving for him on commission. And this is one that the second one that I did, called the Answered Prayer Locksmithing, where I took a caricature picture I saw of Bob Hope. I think caricaturist Jack Davis did the original drawing. It's on the cover of an old TV guide back in the day, but it was Bob Hope leaning on an Oscar, and I adapted that to come up with this carving for the fellow that I was carving it for. And I was very pleased with the way that came out. It's fun to work on ideas just from a picture and then start, going from there with your piece of wood. And so for your faces on the corner, they can be different sizes, from small to big. And even working on the corner, you can make them a little bit bigger where you're incorporating the more of the body. This is a nice bottle stopper I did not too long ago, and just fun having the piece where I used the picture I found on the internet at Caricature and then started trying to see if I could match that up. And that's where I think the carving on the corner can be a fun type of carving, and definitely a way to practice your carving. Another carving I did recently, was trying to go for Marlon Brando from The Godfather with this piece. And this one I did kind of more of, I guess you call it, a relief carving, because I did the face on the corner, but I left these sides on there instead of like this piece where I take it down all the way just to show the face. And then this one I made into a magnet. And then, still being one not to give up on the 2x4, I had some scrap 2x4. I'd cut down some pieces, so I decided to try to do Sam Elliott on this piece. And just an older guy with kind of a grimace on this piece. So they're fun to do with the faces on the corner, as I said. And it's a great way, the more you do, that you get more comfortable, especially in doing eyes, noses, mouths, trying the different mouth expressions, working your way and understanding cheeks, and just how the whole facial piece comes together in a carving. That separation of your chin, that you need more space back into the neck so that the chin doesn't start right here at the bottom of your chin, but there's some depth in there. Any questions so far?
Hey, Ken, what did you use as a reference for the president's heads when you carved those?
For those, I used both real photos that I could find or paintings of the presidents, and also the one Caricature's Tom Richmond. He had done a series of pictures of the president's, caricature pictures that he did, and I also used those for references. It gave me the insight in how he looked at exaggerating some of the features of the presidents, because as in caricature, they're trying to exaggerate features that bring out that, and sometimes minimize features that bring out that person's personality. And so I use those extensively in my carving those.
And did you start with just a triangle block when you were carving those, or what kind of, did you have a pattern, or what did you use?
Just a triangle block and the pictures that I found, that, like I said, either pictures or the older president's paintings that were on the internet, and the Tom Richmond pictures that I found.
Thank you.
Certainly. Here's a larger piece that I did in a Chris Hammack class. If you ever get to take a class from Chris Hammack, you can enjoy his humor and his carving. But I like doing where we got 3 faces in here worked into the scene. And it was a picture I had seen that we worked it out to carve it. So the seagull and the mast are one piece, and then the 3 bodies in the tub are another, and the sail is a piece of basswood that we carved out that came out really awesome. And some of these, I like these kind of carvings as well, because you can add little details in there. We have the rum bottle. There's a dog's head sticking out there and a parrot's head beside them. And then you have the seagull on top. So just a lot of fun. And also, last year I taught up at Honesdale and hope to teach again this year. One of the things I taught last year was a Santa ornament that we did. So I made a study stick, and I found that it's good for both the teacher and the student having study sticks available. And doing your own study stick, it makes you repeat those steps over and over to go from the beginning, step one of just some lines and the basics, to get an idea of the progression of your carving and how you want to have things go. Because initially you're starting out with some reference lines and drawing, then you're going to start, as this shows, taking out the nose and the corner of the brow above top of the nose, and then you start deepening and adding more detail as you go along. So one of your friends in carving is always going to be your pen or pencil as you get going on your carvings, to maintain some of your reference lines of where you want to be working and how you want to be working things out. Any other questions? Right. One thing I like to do, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned a little earlier, was just doing small scrap wood. Like, I was playing around with this piece, which is not painted yet, but it was a Arnold Schwarzenegger from when he played, trying to remember the name of the character he played, one of his early Conan the Barbarian. But I had this piece of scrap block along with me when I was away for a couple weekends ago, and in a hotel room, just able to sit with mostly a knife and carve out Conan. Might be a little washed out on the screen, but little blocks of wood, you can do those small pumpkins. So I save a lot of my scrap wood, and if it's big enough where I can still put a face on there, it's always the way to get, to practice. You can always be having fun putting faces on a small piece of wood. So like I said, one resource I like is going on internet and looking at pictures. I've gone to Pinterest a lot. There's a lot of people have posted different caricature pictures by artists like Jack Davis or Mort Drucker or Tom Richmond, and others, and other artwork, even from just people randomly sketching, and then they post their work. So I found this picture. I'm not sure the artist's name, but I was looking at it. It looks kind of like I would take it as a chef, kind of an interesting facial expression. Nice big ears. He's got the floppy hat going. So I thought that could be a fun little project. So I started out by getting myself these are like 3-inch or so blocks. I cut them on the long side, and then you have the corner. And the nice part about doing the face on the corner, to me, is your face is 5 planes. You have the front plane kind of flat, and then the two side planes, and then as you go back, oblique planes, I guess you call it, and then the two side planes. So you can start out, you already have forced to have that face going back from the nose. And most of that all comes off as you're carving. I guess I'll show this piece might show up a little bit better. I did one with the Sharpie just to hopefully show the lines a little sharper. So I start out just kind of sketching in where I believe the locations of the face should be, and then start working in from there. And then in your mind, you're kind of developing what parts of that carving are going to stick out further and what parts you're going to slowly relieve the wood to start bringing that carving out of the block of wood. Like I said, you're going to start out just with your pencil or pen on your block of wood, and we're moving in. And one thing to always remember is safety. I always wear a glove myself. As you can see, my glove's kind of beat up a little bit. I retape it up because I'm always taking off bits and bits. Thankful that I'm not taking off my skin, although I have managed to do that a number of times along the way. I don't think you can, can be a carver without nicking yourself once in a while. Sometimes people even do it just by dropping their tools, no matter how safe you try to be. I usually like to start at the base of the nose to start bringing the nose out. When you look at the side of the face, that most prominent part's going to be that nose sticking out. And I usually like to take a notch out right about where the nose is going to end and the brow starts. So it starts to set up that separation there of nose to brow. In this case, since he has the hat, I'll sometimes go ahead and start with a stop cut. And then just start defining where some of our major separation points are. If you have any questions or curious about anything, feel free to ask. I am a left-handed carver, so it might look a little bit different for you. One thing I learned from taking classes is I would always, if the instructor was doing a left eye, I would try to do the right eye, and that would be more similar to what the instructor would be doing. Most instructors I've taken classes from are or have been right-handed.
Hey, on your knife there, is that like a tile knife that you made up there or what?
Yep, I learned about that from watching Lynn Dowdy videos, that I like using a fixed blade utility knife is great for roughing out your piece for starting out. It's not going to be that great for detail. You can do some, but the thickness of the blade, but it's a nice sharp blade. And it cuts real nice on the basswood. And I usually have one with each of my kits, my travel kit and my at-home bench for carving. And then I'll move on to a more detailed knife once I'm done blocking everything in. And the nice thing is the blades are fairly cheap. So so you can replace them if you need to. Don't have to replace them too often. I'll just drop them, and then once they do finally get dull, then I'll swap the blade around to what's on the other side, and then pop a new one in. You don't have to have all the real expensive knives just to get started. You can do a fair amount with a knife like this.
Hey, Ken, while you're carving there, can you tell a little bit about being in Woodcarving Illustrated this past month and that whole process, how that came about?
Well, after the encouragement of some friends, Bob Hershey and Joe Savarese, I decided to send an idea that I had for an article to Woodcarving Illustrated. So it was the first time I'd ever tried to do something like that. That's my first article. And it's a very interesting learning curve in working with the people Woodcarving Illustrated. It's a very fun, but with COVID, a lot of their protocols changed. So you do all your own picture taking and other things in the process. So I learned about setting up my my phone on the stand like I'm using here for the video, and being able to take pictures of myself carving, pictures in the article. Hope everybody likes the article. It was a lot of fun. It's a fun character I came up with. I taught it last year using bandsaw cutouts that I did at the Northeast Woodcarvers Roundup, and had a good response with it. And hope people enjoyed the article. It's a fun little turtle to carve. So here I've kind of blocked out the face where I make small V cuts, and just helps me get separation of where I want things to be, and then we'll start going deeper. I'd already started one earlier today, as you can see, where I started rounding the nose and giving the nose some shape, and everything starts going deeper. And you have a fair amount of wood if you look at the thickness here to start doing that. You can make it light relief, but usually I'll start as you say, hogging away and just taking wood and start bringing back those features. You don't want it to be a flat face. That loses some of the character. So you can use in your picture and visualization of how faces move around and round, start working things further back.
Hey, Ken, before we came on today, you talked a little bit about a place where you taught. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe some things you've got coming up?
Yes. One place where I've taken a lot of classes and now I started giving back by being a teacher there is and we were talking about earlier is the Northeast Woodcarvers Roundup. It's every year in July. think this year it starts around July 17th in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, which is just a little bit north of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And it's held at a campsite, Cherry Ridge Campground, and hosted by the owner of the campground, Al Waiter. And they have 2 large halls there. And there's probably, like 10 to 15 instructors teaching everything caricature, intarsia, in the round carvings, wood burning, just almost everything you could imagine, cottonwood bark carving, and you can take the classes for free. The instructors usually only charge for materials. So it's a great way to get into wood carving and try different things and learn about different things. I think this is be their 23rd or 24th year of doing the roundup since they started. Some people that are on here have taught up there. Bob Hershey's taught up there before. Jim Heiser, Don Schwartz. I'm trying to think who else. Mike Bloomquist teaches up there. It's a great way to be able to meet carvers. There's some people that sell if you need tools or whatnot. There's a fella from beyond Standish up towards Buffalo who comes down. He's a knife sharpener. So if you need your knives to be tuned up, he's an excellent person to see. He's kept pretty busy, but he does a great job of sharpening knives for people at the roundup. Right now, I just work towards taking back the sides of that face to generate some depth, and then we'll get some shadow in there as we get going. With this nose, from what I first started showing you, I've already rounded the nose a little bit and started bringing it down. I have where I want the eyes to go, and I'm just starting to work on taking wood off to get the depth and try not to go too fast that I take off something I don't want to take off, even though I know our time is limited. Also, in my carving history, I've been on quite a few of the wood carving cruises that have been out there. And if you want to have an enjoyable time and also be able to wood carve, I highly recommend wood carving cruises. They're usually in January or February when it's cold up north. And you can go to the Caribbean and enjoy nice warm weather and be sitting in a conference room on the days at sea, looking at the beautiful sun, water, and blue sky, and making wood chips, which I think is a lot of fun myself. There's people that I've met on the wood carving cruises from all over the country and Canada. So you end up meeting other carvers and having a lot of fun together carving and cruising if you like to do cruising.
Hey, Ken, I just saw in the Woodcarving Illustrated that Don Schwartz, some of you may know him, he's going to be teaching on one of those. It's scheduled for April 23rd, 2023, so there's plenty of time to sign up, but it's, I think, a cruise to Europe. So if anybody's interested in that, it's out in the new Woodcarving Illustrated that Ken's in. Go out and check out that article or that advertisement that Don Schwartz is going to be the instructor on that cruise. So just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's the next one coming up. They're doing I guess the cruise ship's doing a transition cruise where they go from Florida and they're transitioning to the Mediterranean. So that cruise actually leaves from Florida. And I think you have 4 or 5 days at sea. That would be wood carving days. And then you come into the Mediterranean and you visit a number of ports in the Mediterranean, finishing up near Rome, Italy, and then fly home from Rome. So that looks like another very fun cruise and carving opportunity coming up. And like said, there is information about that in the latest edition of Woodcarving Illustrated.
Ken, I'm noticing on your blade when you're cutting, it doesn't have much movement left or right. Do you have something inside the knife that is holding that blade a little bit more steady? You don't have to show me, just wondering.
No, pretty much it's just the blade clamped down in there pretty good, and then I put some wrap around the handle just to give it a little more of a grip for me. But I didn't add anything to this. I think in the original Lynn Dowdy video I saw where he used it, he actually stuck the blade out a little further and modified the back of the blade with some hardening putty that helped keep it in place. But it just has a little bit of flex to it, but it's in there pretty tight without modifying it. And that may be this handle that I got versus some of the others. Maybe allow them to be a little more wobbly.
Thank you.
Pardon?
I just said thank you.
You're welcome. Now, when I do want to go to details, if I want to do the eye here, this knife is definitely going to be too bulky for me for doing what I'm doing, where I'm taking wood out on the side of the face and starting to get some depth there and working that in. This is a nice knife. If you're working the hog out wood, this is a nice knife. And when you're hogging out and using a knife, I'd rather wear this one down than wear out a nicer knife like a Helvie, where I want to keep it nice and sharp and be able to use it for detail. So one thing to always do is be looking at your carving, especially from the side. As you can see here, my chin's still out kind of far in front of the face. So I still need to take that back some. My nose I could bring in a little bit more as it curves in to the brow. But it's always good to be looking at your carving from different ratios, even looking down to make sure your eye levels are even. Sometimes with the nose there in the middle, it's easy to take more wood out at one side than the other. So then your eye, one eye is sitting out further above the other. It's something always good to keep an eye on. pencil here. So even though I had the eye penciled in there, I still wanted to clean that up some. Nice thing about pencil marks is they're easy to take off. And then we can put them back on. So with eyes, I like to use the tip and just not real deep, but deep enough where I can go around and have a nice stop cut in there. With that, we're just taking out a sliver just to start establishing the roundness of that eyeball. In the case of this drawing, he's got real heavy eyelids. I'm trying to make sure I leave a real heavy eyelid in there. It has a pretty good sized opening for his eyeball. And then the corners, I like to do just a nice chip cut. And that starts creating a shadow of that eye, which is a round orb. You start bringing out the eye. You can see that well enough in the video. So a lot of your carving is going to deal with making sure you have shadows. Those separations make a big difference in having a good shadow that transitions between places on your carving. Another important key for doing the eyes is having a sharp knife. So whether you hand sharpen or have a power sharpener, making sure you have a good sharp knife from the tip back towards the hilt is important, because it can get, I experience, very frustrating if your knife's not sharp, and instead of popping out a chip, you end up having the wood more kind of break away. That's definitely not what you want. And see, with this type of carving of doing a face on the corner, you can get yourself to detail fairly fast compared to doing a full body. So if you want to learn and get better at doing faces, I recommend this as a way, because you can practice your faces and get to that detail much quicker than if you're doing a full carving. where you got hands and legs and arms and feet that you're trying to block in and then carve before you actually get to your detail. It also gives you more confidence for doing that detail when you get to it on those larger projects. I remember early on when I was first starting to carve and watching one instructor do an eye, and they go zip, 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 and then they give your piece back to you, and here's an eye, and you're like, how do you do all that? And then another thing that I highly recommend, if you ever took a class with me, you probably saw me. I had a notepad and a pen and paper, pencil and paper. And I would take notes of what the instructor said, because 9 times out of 10, you might not remember exactly what he was telling you. But if you write it down, you can draw yourself a little picture of maybe the steps they took to do an eye or a nose or a mouth. You can go reference that, and that helps a lot. Any other questions or thoughts?
And Ken, I noticed you're carving primarily with just a knife. Do you ever use gouges and V-tools, or are you primarily a knife carver?
I'd say I'm probably primarily a knife carver. I do use the gouges when I get to places where things I can't do with the knife. But I've also kind of taught myself to do quite a bit with the knife. Mostly I find the gouges I like to use when I get into more of the texture for hair or mustaches, or some more finer lines with the V-tool. And some of that, I think, can be based on the size of the carving. And whether you need to go to the gouges more. Also, when I do the eyes, just above that eyelid into the brow, it's good to put shadow right in that inner corner. So usually we'll go in and do a nice chip cut there at that inner corner to help take that out. And then I'll slowly work some of the other out. That helps give you that shadow you want outside the eye. The thing with wood is you're always thinking about, you're taking wood off, you have to think about the depth and the interrelationships of the depths between the different spots you're working on. So when you start out, like I showed on my early carvings, where the face is kind of flat, and the one thing you learn over time is you can go deeper. Sometimes you don't like an eye, not quite the way you want, sometimes you can take a gouge and you can scoop that eye out and start over again. You're just pushing the face back a little bit. Can't do that, many multiples of times, but there's usually more behind there than you think sometimes. With anything, our faces are pretty even side to side, so you always have to be looking to make sure you don't have to always be super perfect, but you want to get those faces close. I'm just putting in some more shadow cuts, more triangular cuts at the nostrils, pop those out a little bit. I said, this is where some of your caricature comes in, because like on this piece, and looking at the picture is, what's the space between the nose and the mouth. You can have a mouth way down low and give them a real big upper lip in your carving. I think I have one somewhere like that I did recently. Or you can, have the mouth closer to the nose. It's not going to be the normal features that an artist would tell you, but it gives that more caricature effect where the lips are close and then they have this huge chin. And like a little bit what I did here with the Arnold Schwarzenegger, where his mouth line is real close to his nose, but his chin goes way down. And for me, I keep looking, make sure I'm happy with the depth. Sometimes you have to keep working that down till it's where you need it to be. And also remember, it's not going to be flat. You want to keep working. As I'm at the mouth now, that's a mound, so it's going to be a concave shape or convex shape. Once you're done, nothing should be very flat. All that flatness should be gone, and everything becomes rounded. At least that's the goal. Start trying to put in a recess area where we'll have the mouth. Try and show for him the lower teeth. See, in carving, as you work with the grain of the wood, start moving that piece all around in your hand, different, so that your going with the easiest way that the grain wants to allow you. That's one thing is understanding the way that grain's going and when it's going to work with you and when it's going to work against you. Sometimes you don't have any choice, but if you do, you definitely want to try to find that path of least resistance, so to speak. And I know in the finishing process, I mostly use watered down acrylics when I paint. There's some that like oils and others, and a lot of the classes I've taken have been with instructors who use the watered down acrylics. I've been very pleased with the results from them. The way your carving still looks like it's a wood carving and not a piece of plastic. Or nice to see that grain in there.
Ken, do you do any kind of pre-treatment like linseed oil or anything else, or just wet wood, or how do you usually start it?
Usually when I'm done with a carving, I'll wash it with soap and water and let it dry. When I'm painting, usually I'll paint on it dry. Sometimes I will spray it down a little bit so it's just slightly damp when I paint. I have tried using Minwax 209. It's a natural with a little bit of burnt umber in it as a sealer, and a pre-painting is something I learned from Pete LeClaire. But I've gotten to where I haven't seen much difference in just painting on the clean wood, and then I'll seal it sometimes afterwards. And then I do like the Chris Hammack antiquing method, so I'll spray a few coats on polyurethane on a piece to make sure it's well sealed with the poly, and then I'll use his antiquing method, which is a Minwax gel stain, thin just a little bit, and you wipe it all over your carving, and then you wipe off that gel stain, and it stays in the creases and helps bring out the shadows real well. I do like that technique. But you definitely want to have your piece well sealed with the polyurethane before you do that, because the gel stain will soak right in.
You said that was a Chris Hammack technique?
Yes,
I have to look that up. Thank you.
you're welcome. Pardon me.
Question.
Yes. I didn't hear your question. If you're...
I was just saying bless you because you sneezed.
Oh, I thought you said question. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions, Mike?
Is that a 3-inch square block or 3-inch tall by what?
I think I started with the 2x2 block and then I cut it on the long side,
Okay,
but these are all starting out as 2x2.
okay, thank you.
I mean, I think this was more like 1.5 inches or a little over 1 inch of scrap wood. Like I said, any size, and the smaller you go, it's a practice on detail on a smaller scale, but also you don't have to necessarily carve as much detail. Nice little handy blocks you can even pop in your pocket and whatnot.
Well, Ken, we're coming up on about 10 after 4. I'll go ahead and see if there's any other questions as far as
Sure.
Ken's process goes. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, we'll leave the knife bit open for just a few more minutes if anybody's interested in that. Ken, I want to say thank you for coming on. I know I asked you quite a while back, and I appreciate you taking time out to come on and present with us. Always interesting to see how somebody else carves from a corner block and what they're able to do with that. So thanks for showing us that. Maybe if you get that one painted up, if you'll send us pictures, we'll post that on our website. So people can see how it finished up. So if you want to do that, send it over to me.
Sure.
Thank you, Ken. Just wanted to remind everybody coming up in September, the Carving the Rocky show that the CCA is doing is on September 24th and 25th. If you're interested in that, make sure you get signed up for that and make arrangements to get out there to Colorado. Again, if you're a caricature carver, this is a show primarily for caricature carvers. Again, it's in September. It's the first annual CCA Carving the Rocky show. So try to make it out to that if you can. Want to give a shout out to Woodcarving Illustrated. They also gave us a free ad in the magazine. So if you go out and you look at Ken's article, make sure you flip back through the advertisements. You'll see us in there advertising our meetings and stuff. And we want to say thank you to them for advertising our meetings and supporting us as well. Next week, again, we're going to have on Dana Kababic from Carving Junkies. She's going to come on and talk about advertising wood carving and what she does with YouTube and newsletters and things like that. So if you're interested in that, come on and join us next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, I want to say thanks to Ken for coming on. Thank you all for joining us on this Saturday afternoon. This has been the International Association of Woodcarvers. We will go ahead and call the bid on the knife. So at this point, it looks as though we need to have Dave stay on. Dave, if you'll stay on so we can gather your information, you're the winner of the knife. And we thank you all for joining us today on the International Association of Woodcarvers. Thank you all.